Hi, it's Thursday, June 18th. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Google Cloud Talks by DevRel, where we'll be focusing all about the G Suite developer platform. Google Cloud Talks by DevRel is this ongoing series presented by Google Cloud developer advocates to address topics that are most important to you, the dev community. Today's session is all about G Suite, and next Tuesday, June 23rd, we've got a special event hosting a 24-hour kind of series of talks just across the globe, all around the world on everything cloud. And you can catch it in all sorts of time zones, wherever you are on planet Earth. We'll be starting at 10 a.m. in Sydney, Australia, and kind of cycling around following the sun, and finishing at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So all the way around through Asia, through Europe, across the Atlantic, for those of you who are on boats, I guess. And you can find out all the info about our upcoming sessions and register on our website. So if there are topics you'd like to see in the future as well, since we'll be doing these weekly sessions in the future, share them through the Q&A that we'll have up, or in the comments, or in the live chat. So with that, let's get started. I want to introduce our fabulous speakers today. Let's pull them up. Here they are. Hey, everybody. You can say hello. I see that many of you are muted for reasons of silent hand waving. How are you all doing today?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, pretty good.
We're good.
It's great to have everybody on. What have you all been up to with your time kind of at home, hiding from, doing good social distancing, as it were? We get to do this awesome digital event. I don't necessarily get to see all of you in one place on any sort of regular basis, honestly, right? So this is kind of cool that we can all be kind of hosting a together conference, if as it were.
Oh yeah, it's all good. And,
It's a change. I was actually just thinking the other day. I'm starting to not really miss airplanes.
Plus one of that.
Yeah. No, it's also good for focusing. I mean, you can kind of get some quiet time and just kind of devote, uninterrupted time. So I like it. So.
I don't know. I have a 6-year-old and 2 kittens, so
Well,
focus is not really possible.
Speaking of which, I bought some coloring books, and I've been enjoying comparing our artistic drawings with your children.
Oh, one other thing, just to plug the Google Orchestra. We actually recorded music, and so now it's being all edited together, and
Amazing.
so that's something to
What do you play, Chris?
Oh.
Cool.
Trumpet.
Cool. I did not know. I knew we have so many musicians in DevRel. We could have a DevRel orchestra. We should work on that. But yeah, for folks who are, let us know, folks who are watching, what you've been up to while in quarantine. We got some folks joining from, we have Mario from Sonoma, California, and we have Nathan cheering for G Suite DevRel. So you all have some fans out there, which is exciting. And let's see. There was something I wanted to go over before we got started. We can talk a little bit about, maybe introduce to the viewers, each of you. We'll be starting off today. Charles will kind of give an overview presentation. He's a developer advocate, focused. He's doing G Suite stuff, crushing it. And then we'll hear from Anu, who is in New York, and she likes to advocate for developers building on top of the G Suite platforms to enhance their businesses, and specifically focuses on the APIs for docs, sheets, and slides. Fun fact, back when we were still in the office together, at a point in the past before we moved seats, we actually used to sit together. We were side-by-side neighbors. And yeah. And in her free time, she likes to perform with her dance group in Manhattan. After Anu, we'll be hearing from AGV up in the upper left corner there. She is a DA, a developer advocate for GCP by day, and is passionate about using technology to solve for complex sustainability challenges that are pressing in the world. And then we'll have 2 more presenters closing us out. Steve, who is in Boulder, Colorado. And again, this distributed teams thing is awesome. And he's worked on all of G Suite APIs and enjoys helping developers build integrations to solve their problems and delight users. Outside of work, Steve does really cool stuff. He plays poker, is learning to snowboard, that Boulder life, playing games of all sorts, and being a dad. And finally, we'll close it out today with Christian, who works as a cloud developer advocate and specializes on GCP from serverless, ML and AI, as well as low or no code G Suite technologies, app scripts, and app sheet, which I've actually never heard of. So might have to ask him about that later.
Stay tuned next week.
So with that out of the way, I guess we'll get started. Any thoughts, comments before we get started with Charles? From anybody? No? All right.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Great. All right, Charles, let's have you fire up your presentation, and everybody else will join us later as they kind of bring in their own presentations. We'll see you all later.
All right. See you soon.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I do have one first comment. I want to thank you, Yufeng, for actually inviting us. Super helpful for us to get the message out about G Suite as a development platform. And I think, one of the interesting things, and we kind of have a little team joke amongst ourselves, is to really remind developers that G Suite is a part of Google Cloud. So it's not GCP, it's also G Suite as well too, right? And so there's a lot of opportunities to build solutions that reach users in a whole different number of ways using a platform at your disposal that you don't always think about it. And so if you ask our team what we do, one of our main cores is we really go around and try to talk to developers around the world about the opportunities of using G Suite, not necessarily as an entire solution stack, but part of a solution. You integrate pieces where you pull information together, or you store data, or you reach the user experience. There's a lot of great ways to do that. And so you mentioned earlier, what have we been doing in the lockdown days or traveling less? And virtually we're trying to find and reach people around the world too. And one of the things, we talk to a lot of audiences, a lot of developer audiences, and you hear people from all walks of life that actually build on G Suite. Right? It's not just a certain type. In fact, there's a number of different developer scenarios out there. I'm just going to hold on a second. I'm just going to cover real quickly in my presentation kind of the who's building on G Suite, why they're building it, what they're building with, and then turn it over to the rest of the folks in the team for some really deep demonstrations that'll kind of back up some of the claims I'm about to make. And so the first,
I said that's awesome. That sounds good.
Awesome, good. So I hope you like it. I hope everybody likes it. And I do, before I proceed, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. I boldly named this talk, Developers Love G Suite. And I do want to stress that we have tons of folks that do love it, but the fact that you're tuning in and hoping to learn more, we hope you love it too in the future. So again, here it goes. So a couple things that I mentioned, we talked to a lot of folks around the world about G Suite as a development platform. And not one size fits all the type of developer that uses G Suite, as obviously not one size fits all for the type of solutions. And I think unique to G Suite, there's a lot of different developer angles that you can build in and around and with G Suite from. And so, kind of the obvious one, if you're a developer and you work for a third-party solution provider, whether you work for a SaaS or a data service or somebody who builds software and services that you sell to other companies, there's a great opportunity to build on the G Suite platform from that role. If you think about it, you've got a solution in the marketplace. Obviously, G Suite is a very popular solution. All the apps we know and love, Gmail, Drive, Calendar, Meet, Chat, Sheets, Slides, Docs, on and on and on. There's a bunch more as well too. The ability to kind of combine the best of your solution with the best of our solution is a great opportunity for third-party developers to not just reach more people, but also to really enhance the way people work and interact with their overall solution. So we think that there's a great opportunity for third-party developers, and we see a lot of folks doing that. Now, I'll give you some examples later on how many folks are actually building on the platform. Probably the most common case that folks think about, and probably one of the most common developer types, are folks that work for companies both large and small. So if you're an enterprise developer, you work for IT, there's a lot of great reasons to really engage with G Suite. And so I can go through a ton of them, but I'm just going to hit on a couple of highlights. The first one is really, it's the opportunity to make G Suite work the way your business works. Every business is absolutely unique, right? And so if you can make G Suite out of the box, or should I say more importantly, out of the service, right? Because it's obviously all web-based in the cloud, you can actually make it work the way your business works and normally do in a pretty fast, economical way when it comes to building solutions. And so the ability to extend it and make it really work the way you uniquely work as a company is super awesome. The other unique thing I want to point out for enterprises is it's not just developing solutions. As you know, there's a great opportunity to acquire or buy or even get a lot of free solutions that other third parties have built and promote with the platform. So it's always buy versus build, and G Suite's got a very thriving ecosystem that if you're not contributing to it, you could also use it yourself as an IT developer. So if you're an IT admin role, there's a lot of great things that you can reuse to really enhance the way folks work with G Suite with customized solutions. And then really finally unique to G Suite is this notion of a citizen developer. And that's really somebody who doesn't identify as a developer or as a full-time developer. Most folks on this call, most folks listening in, you probably identify yourself as full stack developer, somebody who develops professionally for a living. But G Suite's a little unique where a lot of folks that are business level folks, maybe less technical, maybe even non-technical, can leverage the platform and take charge of their own productivity. So they don't have to necessarily go to IT or go out and build or ask folks to build solutions. They can build them their own on the technology. And for that reason, it's really good to point out that G Suite's very approachable. So even if you are a pro dev and you never played with it before, or if you even are less technical, you can build solutions pretty easy with a lot of the tools and frameworks, a lot faster than you could with some traditional development type of tools. Okay, so what type of things do people do, and why do they do it? And this is kind of super important. The first thing I would tell you as a developer is, if you want to reach more people with your solutions, well, you're a third-party SaaS provider, right? You want to get more eyeballs on your solution. You want to get more clicks. You want to get more follow-through, more engagement for your existing customer base. Why not look at G Suite as an opportunity? If you think about it, the addressable market is huge, right? There's over 6 million businesses and growing that use G Suite. So 6 million businesses, ranging from small 3, 4, 5-person businesses up to 300, 400, 500,000 businesses and everywhere in between. So whether you target horizontal solutions, vertical solutions, whether you're looking at for small, medium business type of systems, or up to really industrial strength systems for companies running on G Suite, there's an opportunity to build it there. And so meet users where they work. And if you think about that, the average G Suite user spends a lot of time there. And it's a lot of opportunity to really engage them, right? If they spend a lot of their time in Gmail or in chat or working with Sheets, you can reach them where they work best and reach lots of them. If you think again about pure numbers, I mentioned the 6 million businesses, 120 million students have licenses for G Suite. So if you're focusing on the EDU sector, you want to target education, a great market there. And all in all, when you take all those numbers into account, your addressable market's about 2 billion people when you focus on consumers around. And again, that's billion with a B, so it's a lot of opportunity. Okay, so but another point is, since G Suite is installed, so if you're an IT developer or if you're a third-party developer, why not leverage the building on the existing infrastructure and the investments that are already made in place? You think about it, G Suite obviously, once it's acquired, once it's deployed, once it's rolled out, once users are familiar with it, it's a great platform for you to target to build these solutions. Right? And it's not just that there's a lot of users there, but all the goodness that comes with the platform is great for helping you build solutions a lot faster. So if you think about it, a lot of solutions, you have to go out and worry about things like user management and security controls and authentication. Imagine having all the authentication done for you automatically, which G Suite enables in many solutions. So this way, it's not just a simpler development platform. You also get all the goodness that comes with it, like the user roles, the groups, DLP, archive, all the stuff that comes with the platform. So a great way to really predictively have a confident, reliable solution stack. And then finally, and this is probably the most important as a developer, what's key as a developer is you want to build solutions, you want to build them fast. The goal here isn't to write the most lines of code. The goal here is to write solutions, get them to market faster, and get the rewards of getting things done. And so when you think about G Suite, you're not always starting from scratch to build solutions. A lot of times you could use existing functionality within the platform to get things done faster than you would if you built it from scratch. Let me give you a common example. Think about you want to write an application where you want to gather inputs from a user. Then you want to take those inputs and store them in a database. Then you want to take action on those, maybe conditionally iterate through those and do something on the end. You can obviously write that application yourself, build your own UI, hook up into some data layer, and then put your conditional logic around it. But if you wanted to quickly say, use Google Forms to collect that information as your UI, and then take that and have it as it's naturally bound to a spreadsheet, use that as the temporary holding point for your database. You can push that into a formal database or keep it right there, or just work with it the way it is, but then you can use the APIs behind the platform to do some of that conditional logic all pretty quickly, pretty easy, develop it a lot faster with a lot less. And now I hate to say this a little bit, but I will say it, it's also a great place for doing prototyping, for doing fail fast iteration. And so you're not investing and over-investing in building an entire system. And so a lot of the components of the platform are really set up well for you to really kind of trial things out and build that way. So do a lot faster, a lot better. Okay, so enough talking about why you want to do it. Just real quickly, I want to glance at the platform itself. And so we have this new kind of obligatory platform slide to kind of let you know what we're thinking about when we talk about G Suite as a development platform. And that's one of my key takeaways, by the way, is really this is a development platform. It's an open, extensible platform that you can work with in a number of facets. At a high level, the most kind of important core of the platform is the way it works with data. And frankly, that data, your data can live in a variety of forms. It could be data you have stored inside of G Suite. So for example, that could be Gmail, that could be docs, that could be information inside of a spreadsheet, but it could be outside as well too. It could be in a relational database, non-relational database. It could be in a third-party application. You may hit it from web endpoints or web pages, structured, unstructured, whatever it is. But the bottom line is you can interact with all that data inside and outside of G Suite in a number of ways. And many of those ways are actually code-free. Right, so you don't actually have to write that data layer, it just works. And then of course, if you want to write, obviously code, we have a lot of ways that you can even reach like on-premise data, for example, with JDBC drivers, for example, or access, I should say. So there's a lot of great ways to reach a platform. At the core of the platform, though, what really makes up the heart of the G Suite developer platform are the frameworks and the APIs themselves. So if you want to build add-ons and chatbots, or if you want to actually hit any of the applications that make up G Suite, whether that's Gmail, Classroom, Cloud Search, Calendar, Drive, Docs, the people, contacts, all these things we have open APIs for. In fact, almost the entire platform is covered by APIs. So it makes it super easy. So, but now you have G Suite, right? And this makes logical sense when you want to work with G Suite things. But as I mentioned, it's not just wholly self-contained, right? Think about an open platform and the power of the platform. The favorite thing I like to point out, and you're going to see a lot of demos in this session today, shows how we can work better together with things like Google Cloud Platform. So it's not just limited to things that you do in GCP. In fact, in G Suite, the better together story is something I really want to stress. So if you think about that, you want to build a consistent, familiar, easy front end that users understand. G Suite is great at that. But if you want to build a powerful, scalable back end behind it, whether it's data or machine learning or whatever, that's where GCP comes in. And again, you can see some great integrations today between the platforms. So really better together. A couple examples, and again, some of the folks are going to show it. For example, Dialogflow, where if I want to have conversational context with users, great example, and Nu's going to show you in a few seconds, where you actually can use conversations in chatbots to actually talk to systems in the back end and use natural language versus having to learn complex ways folks are working. So some great things like that. A lot of the things like the Vision API or natural language or translation. Imagine what you could do with a sheet front end and actually going out and pulling in data and using those tools as well too. So interesting. You mentioned, Yufeng, that you hadn't heard of AppSheet. AppSheet's actually a new kind of family member of G Suite. It's not really quote unquote a developer tool because it's a code-free solution. But what it does is allows you to build web and mobile apps really quickly, but then connect to back ends and even kind of mid-ends, if you will, like the G Suite platform. So for example, I can connect with Sheets to an app sheet and build a whole application, again, normally without code, and it's super fast, again, great for prototyping or great for even solutions that are either temporary or something you're not maybe scaling to millions of users and you're not worried about a lot of custom functionality. So a great opportunity to look at different ways you could build that. And then finally, this last point, if you think about, I mentioned data a lot, and a lot of folks use spreadsheets as databases, and you could absolutely do that to an extent, right? Obviously, they fall down at some point, but natively, naturally, the ability to connect things like BigQuery and pull in billions of rows inside of your environment to build out solutions on is something you can do with the GCP platform. Okay, so GCP, better together, great. At the heart and core of working with the platform, we have various ways that you have tools and runtimes that'll work. The most common one we'll talk a little bit about, but not tons, because I think some folks may know about it, is AppScript. And AGV is going to go up and show you some great solutions to AppScript. But AppScript is basically our programming language. It's our runtime infrastructure that's all built into the product to automate G Suite. That said, if you're not into AppScript or you're not aware of it, we encourage you to look at it. But of course, you can use your own languages. You can use GCP. You can even use other systems via our APIs. You can get out a lot of it. But again, just kind of wrapping up the platform, remember, all this comes together because you build on the identity and the infrastructure and all the core toolings to actually secure the environment. And then, of course, then you can actually distribute your solutions on the G Suite marketplace. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second as well. So with that, that's the platform at a high level. I'm just going to look at the two main components at a little detail, then turn it over to the folks to show you these things in action. So the first one is G Suite Add-ons. And G Suite Add-ons, first of all, these are not new. If you've been working with G Suite for a while as a user or as a developer, you're probably aware that add-ons have been around for some time. We've recently extended the framework. In fact, we've modernized it quite a bit. So there's kind of two ways we actually can build add-ons now. So we'll talk about the new way quite a bit, but I want to step back for a second and say there's really kind of three distinct categories that I see add-ons fitting into if you wanted to build an add-on. So for example, the first one is we historically have seen folks that want to bring new functionality or extend the way G Suite works, add on functionality, hence the name add-ons. And these are normally solutions that fill gaps or missing features in the products, which is really great. And we've seen a good marketplace for that. Things that we don't build that other folks may want to build and do that. The second kind is really around utilities, right? Utilities are, automations or workflow processes that are unique to your business that you want to build. You can create these type of utilities, distribute them amongst yourself, your team, your colleagues, or the entire organization. And so a lot of different ways you can automate processes using add-ons. And then the third one, and the one that we're seeing more and more popular, is the ability to integrate, again, those third-party solutions, other apps and services, and integrate them with the natural way that folks are working with G Suite. So if you look at the slides right now, you'll see there's an animated GIF kind of flashing around on the screen. And you can see this add-on, it manifests in this case inside of Gmail. And then you can see this add-on is actually, in this case, it's a, let me make sure I got the right image here. I have to pop and see that real quick. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. It's our issue tracking application. So basically one that helps reconcile customer service issues, bugs, triage, those type of things. And you can see right within the body of the mail, this person's able to work with the add-on in the same instance of the same window. And if you think about the way we do work today, right? No user uses just G Suite or just one app. They use many apps. In fact, I've seen studies that the average user uses up to 36 different apps in a day, or not a day, but just in their work style. It still sounds like a lot of apps. And you think about that, one of the challenges, you find that they're constantly switching context from different windows and different tabs and tabs and tabs and tabs and tabs, and we've all seen that. And an add-on allows you to bring that right in line so that work stream, that workflow works together kind of seamlessly. So add-ons are a really good way to bring your applications and your work processes into G Suite and let folks work natively. A couple things just real quick technically about it that we've added new to add-ons that I think are super interesting and super helpful for developers. The first one is this notion of a homepage. And a homepage is kind of like it sounds like on a web page, right? But this whole notion, when you build your add-on, and when a user lands inside of your add-on and pops it up, you can see here on the graphic right now on how you can simply go over to the sidebar and pick open different add-ons. This allows you to have a landing page, whether that's your branding or whether that's where you want to collect inputs or provide instructions on how to use your application. You can do it right from here. In this case, you can see we're actually using search, so folks can actually search the backend database of the solution without having to go back and again, log in, toggle windows, go back and forth between the two things. So the homepage is a neat, new, efficient way to make a really rich user experience. Okay, next one is add-ons are context aware. And this is kind of the most impressive part of it. So if you think about it, the way a user is working within that flow, within that process, you as a developer can kind of grok what they're working on by deriving some intelligence from the content, whether it's information in the body of an email like you see here, or whether it's metadata about a document they're working on, or whether it's about a calendar event and who's invited to that meeting. You can take all that information and build something with your solution to automatically display the right information right at the right time for users to actually work in a natural flow process with a context-aware solution. If you see the slide looking up right here, you can see what it's doing is there's an email coming in from a customer, and without the user doing anything, when they open the add-on, this add-on's already gone out, figured out where that customer information was, whether it was in the body or in the sender or even the CC line, whatever, and then automatically pulled up that CRM information and displayed it here. So again, the user goes really quickly and natively to think about how it works. And as a developer, as a solution provider, your experience is more seamless and easy. In fact, they can even do things like update directly to the back end to your application using that context. So really neat stuff, a great way to really extend the way people work. Okay, so real quickly, how do you build these things? They're actually simple to build as well too. Currently, they're based upon the app script model that I mentioned earlier. So you have app script to go in, you create a single project, you build it out using our cards framework for add-ons, and then all you do is you work on that one project and you can actually expose it across all the different G Suite applications. So if you want to have your application surface in Gmail or in Calendar or Drive, soon we're actually going to have it in all the editor apps as well too. We have the old model in the editor apps. Soon we're going to actually have it in the across the board. And so you write your solution once, you would create one project, and then when you configure it for which one of the applications you want it to run in it, in fact, they can run on all the applications, you simply configure the manifest file and determine the entry points and the scopes that you want to use for each one of the different applications, and you edit it all in one place. Finally, when you're done, you take that, you deploy it to the G Suite Marketplace, and against a single application, a single process. And again, when you make your changes, when you work across the different apps, it's kind of neat, it's kind of easy. So they're not hard to build, and they're actually pretty quick. In fact, we've got a bunch of new tools that have to come out to make this even faster. Okay, so switch gears for a second, chatbots. And so first of all, as you know, a lot more people are starting to use chat than ever before. Us as a team, we use chat all the time versus email. It's a lot faster, it's a lot lightweight, it's a lot more on that real-time thing. And so chatbots are a great way to bring opportunities for talking to backend systems, for pulling in data, for adding actions in a real-time manner to really make conversations more interesting, more productive, more efficient. So think about it, if you're working as a team together and you want to schedule a meeting or you want to look up information, you shouldn't have to go somewhere else and lose the context of the chat of the conversation. You can create a chatbot that does it right there. It's a really natural extension the way users work. Let me give you a great example. This is a built-in chatbot called the Meetbot. And the Meetbot, first of all, how do you actually bring a chat into your conversation in chat? And you've probably seen these, you've probably explored with these. One of my favorite is this Meetbot where, if you're working as a team and, you realize, let's have a meeting next week, you can come in and simply say, @meet, bring that bot into the conversation, and then in natural language say, find a time for us to all meet next week. The chatbot will go out, look at all the calendar information, look at free, busy, figure out who's in that meeting, obviously, find the next best times, actually display those back to you and let you pick one. So while you're talking about the context of what your conversation is, what's important, it's already done that legwork of playing all the calendar games and juggling all the different calendar events and figure out what's the next best time, and it returns it for you and you quickly pick it. It's simple, it's fast, it's easy, and all that work is done on the back end. So imagine the type of bots you could build yourself with your solutions to kind of front off conversations and make them more efficient. Another neat solution besides taking action and actually being interactive is this notion that chatbots can push information out to users. So you can use it as kind of a notification tool. So if you think about it, a lot of users are sitting on their chat tool all day long, right? And you probably have seen the announcement, by the way, chat is now embedded inside of Gmail. So you can reach people all day long with this kind of ability to push feeds right to them. And so here's a great example where Drive actually has a chatbot that pushes notifications out to users anytime something changes in their personal Drive profile. So for example, if somebody requests a document from me and asks for access, I'll get notified of that, and I can actually give them access right inside that document without having to go off to Drive or be distracted or have it show up in my email and worry about yet another step and, again, toggling back and forth windows. So it's really neat to push information out and letting folks take action on it. Okay, finally, how do you build these things? Again, we've got a framework which allows you to build these. You can create, simple text messages that come back. You can create cards and spaces and do a little more complexity as well too. Anu's going to show you in a second how you can actually build one of these as well too. So cool stuff. Okay, So switching gears for a second, and again, I'll be kind of quick here, as I think a lot of folks may know of AppScript. If you don't, please look at it. It's super simple, super easy. It's built right into G Suite as a product, as a platform, and allows you to get things done fast. So first of all, it's been around for about 10 years. And the neat thing about that is there's nothing to do, right? It's all serverless. There's nothing to install. There's nothing to configure. There's nothing to set up. It all just works. Obviously, it runs all server side. It's based on JavaScript, so you probably already know it if you're a developer. In fact, there's a lot of folks, as I mentioned, system developers who also find this easy because they know how to do it. It's got its own IDE built right in. It stores the project source code all together right inside a drive. So again, you can create a project from 0 to 60 really fast. So it's good stuff. The type of solutions you can build with it range from simple to sophisticated. So for example, if you want to just create a custom function in Sheets, which a lot of users do, in fact, that's why we invented AppScript in the first place, it allows you to do that. But if you want to create a quick automation that saves you a few steps, or customize the UI to get user inputs and run your code automatically with triggers, you can do that. You can also connect to all the other goodness around Google, as well as your own third-party services directly from AppScript. As I mentioned, it's open. Most commonly, folks target Sheets. About 80% of the AppScript use cases we see are in Sheets. And so in Sheets, we actually even have a simple macro recorder, which allows you to write code automatically just by following your actions, and it writes the code for you. So it kind of solves that problem if you're not a great code writer or you simply want to do it fast. Okay, so one final thing I want to mention, again, I said this is super easy. AppScript really democratizes the development of solutions on G Suite. So citizen developers, less technical people can build it. You yourself can build these pretty fast and can get started. In fact, many scripts that folks write are useful tools and utilities that take 100 or less lines of code. In fact, it's one of our competitions as a team, so you can do the most with less code. And that's why I talk about that kind of build fast and reusability. But yet these solve key business problems, so they're really valuable solutions. Okay, so, and then finally, just kind of wrapping this up, as I mentioned, everything in the platform, nearly every nook and cranny within the platform is fronted by an API. So as a professional developer, as somebody who wants to take some of the goodness, whether it's the data, the functionality, the reusability, the user reach of G Suite as a platform, you can do this, but you can also do it with your own personal preference, your own personal team. So for example, you want to work in Node, you want to work in Visual Studio, whatever you want to do, you can bring your own language, your own runtime, your own code editor, etc. Okay, to get started on this, first of all, you can see the link up on the screen. There's a bunch of APIs already documented up there, really easy to do. I'm going to leave you with one simple bullet point: developers.google.com/G Suite, and gets you started on all these things. Okay, real quickly though, when you're done, how do I actually deploy the solution? What's the way I want to do it? And hopefully everybody's heard of the G Suite Marketplace. Again, if you're a G Suite user, you probably have. This is the one-stop place where professional developers and even non-professional developers can publish their applications. And I'll get more on the latter in a second. But think about the global reach, the visibility of those 2 billion users, right? Consumers, business users, EDU, whatever. Most importantly, the G Suite administrator, right? G Suite administrators who actually can deploy and implement your solution. So if you're looking to sell a solution to the public, the G Suite Marketplace is the place. You're going to reach more people and make it very easy, very manageable, and very confidently secure to deploy and have folks discover your application. Just to give you an idea of the reach, as I mentioned, the 2 billion users, there's been over 1 billion apps installed from the marketplace, and currently there's actually thousands. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's in the thousands, reaching tens of thousands of applications built by developers, both small and large, developers like yourself that build for the platform. So cool stuff. Something I wanted to point out is a lot of folks always think that the G Suite Marketplace is for public-only applications. And again, if you're in IT or you're customizing a solution for a customer, but you don't want to build a solution for the world, G Suite Marketplace is also where you deploy domain-centric solutions. And so these are solutions that you're not trying to sell those, or they're custom and unique just for your team or your department or the organization you're working with. You can do internal domain distribution and discoverability through the G Suite Marketplace. And so the neat thing is that I can build a solution, I can point at specific users, specific OUs, but know that it's safe and secure, but also reachable inside my organization. And so with that, I'm going to pause and stop, and I apologize if I went a little long, but hopefully you get an idea why I'm excited about the platform. I hope you are too. The link you see on the screen now is where I really recommend you go. It'll sum a lot of this up for you, developers.google.com/G Suite. But enough of me talking. Why don't I pause? Let's bring a new in, and let's get ready to talk about how you can take chatbots and dialogue to really change the conversation.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Anu. Thanks for joining.
How are
Good.
you? Okay, let me get set up.
Cool. Well, hey, Yufeng, what did you think? I mean, I know you're a developer. What do you think?
It's pretty amazing. I mean, like you said, getting that kind of fully built infrastructure out of the box is just amazing. You know, not having to set up your own web server in a lot of cases, right? Like having these applications that run end to end. I've seen in the past examples online of folks who have done whatchamacallit, like using Sheets as a database, basically, right? Using it as a CMS.
Yeah.
You know, I've thought about setting up things where I could maybe hook it up to a personal site, and then it'll be a lot easier to update, let's say, like, what next talks am I doing, instead of having to like push updates to a repo and then build a CI/CD pipeline and yada yada yada. It's just like, let me just update a cell in a spreadsheet. Like, that's so much more flexible. So
you're so right. I've seen a lot of people build solutions faster from start to stop than they can almost describe it and get configured and set up in a full stack environment. So that's why, again, I'm a big fan, and I hope our audience is a big fan as well too. So thanks everybody for listening. Enjoy New.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Yeah, just on that note, I have never been a front-end developer in my life. I hate writing UIs, so I actually like to use spreadsheets as like a front end. But now I am going to take us through our first demo, and it is a chatbot, but our story actually starts out in a sheet. In DevRel, we used to travel a lot, but now, like, we're still talking to developers, we're still talking to customers, and now that we do that all virtually, we get a lot of follow-up questions that are best actually answered by our sales team. So Google is a huge company, and it's hard to know who the right person is to contact, even within a department, so cloud for us. Within sales, we have the people who deal with the account specifically. They're grouped into clusters, and then within each cluster, we have account managers, and we also have engineers that specialize on certain disciplines. So it gets pretty complicated to find out who you need to ping when you need a question, even within a single department. So we have a lot of spreadsheets just like this. So this is actually a copy of one of these lookup sheets from one of our European teams. I scrubbed out all the names. All those names are fake. And then those accounts I mentioned, they're actually down here. Scrubbed out the company names as well, and I replaced them with certain Google products. But the spreadsheet is set up the exact same. So let's say I do a talk, and then I get a follow-up question. Who can advise on security best practices for the YouTube account? So first, I would have to figure out where YouTube is, which cluster it belongs to. So we see it's here in cluster 3. And then I probably need an engineering specialist. So then someone from this column. And then I needed it for, what did I say? Security. So it's this person. Or, you know, maybe I need someone who knows the account details for like the analytics account. Basically, I need a few pieces of information to figure out who I need to contact. So this works fine, but, you know, sometimes I'm on the go a lot. Sometimes I'm using my phone. Sometimes I have 100 tabs open at any given time. Actually, that's always true. I don't want to have to remember this spreadsheet URL and how to use it. Even after I find this person, the next thing I'm probably going to do is just open a chat window to ping them. So this is where the bot comes in. It would be much easier if I could just get the contact info within chat and then open a new chat window to forward the question. So in my opinion, this is a pretty complicated sheet. I know that there are much more complicated and scarier sheets out there, but I can't directly automate the lookup as it is right now because the sheet has been designed for human consumption. So the way that these clusters are laid out, it's kind of arbitrary, but that's what works best for like me and you to view it. But we can automate this with the Sheets API. So like I mentioned, we need to know 3 pieces of information to actually do the lookup. So remember these for later. We need to know the account name so we can get the cluster. Then we need to know the specialty, which is this column right here. And then we need to know the role. So whether it's account manager or engineer. And I could write a straight out of the box bot that expects these 3 inputs in that order, but it would be kind of an unnatural conversation and difficult to use. And then with like any app, if it's too hard to use, people aren't going to use it. So this is where Dialogflow comes in. Dialogflow is an AI-powered conversational interface, and it's where you can train an agent to understand user input for your specific bot needs. So what does that mean? It sounds like I just said a lot of buzzwords. Let me give you just a really quick illustrative example. So let's say I had a weather bot, and I ask it, will it rain today? Asking it, will it rain today, is essentially the same as asking, what is the weather today on July 18th? So Dialogflow will actually use like a pre-trained model to understand that conversation and then break it down into variables. So then it breaks it down into, okay, we can tell where this user is, we know the date, and we know that they're asking for the weather. So once it's put into those variables, I can more easily write some code for it. And that's exactly what we're going to do for this spreadsheet. So I'm going to kind of do this in reverse. I'm going to show you the demo, and then I'll show you how we built the code around it. So let's go to chat. I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to create a new room. Cloud Talks. Okay, so I'm going to add a bot. So we kind of treat bots as people. This way, you know, there's installing it and using them feels really similar, and it's easier for more people to use bots. So my bot is called Smart Accounts Bot. Okay, great. Let's get started with our first query. So let's do, let's say I want to know today who is on Gmail for data management. So here, I've actually given it partial information intentionally. We've given it the account, and then we've given it the specialty. So let's see what happens. Okay, this is what I wanted to happen. The bot knows that it still needs a 3rd piece of information, so it's going to ask me what role I want. So let's do account manager for this first one. Oops, I'm having some latency issues, but I actually just ran this a couple minutes ago. And we have this card that gets responded with. Please contact Jolene Penny. So this card I constructed with the chat framework, and it gives me back the cluster and the contact info, which I can then pull out and then put into a new chat window and then ping Jolene with whatever the question is. And then since we're using a backend, we can actually integrate other services. So here we have this map, which is it's actually an API called Maps, Stack Maps. So it's part of the Maps API family. And once I know their location, I can dynamically generate this image. So if we were building this with real data internally, I would actually be integrating all of this with contacts. Maybe at your company or your organization, you use some other service. And if it has an API, you can directly integrate it into your bot. So then I have another query I ran. So that's like the happy case. Like if there is someone to respond, if that person does exist in the sheet. Well, what happens if I give it a query that there's no company or maybe the sheet hasn't been up to date? So I ran this one. Who is the account manager for networking at Acme? Acme is a fake company name I used, and I know that it's not in my spreadsheet. I designed this error card where it tells you what couldn't be found and a little bit of error info. And then I have this widget at the bottom, account data, which lets me take an action. So I'm not just, in the dark wondering why this bot won't work. And it'll take me to the data so I can make sure it's up to date. So let me show you how, now that we've seen the demo, let me show you how we set this up in Dialogflow. I'm going to zip through this, but afterwards I will send out code labs that go through each one of the steps. So here is the Dialogflow console. We start out by creating an agent. So think of this agent as like a virtual agent that handles everything that has to do for this conversation. So I've called it Smart Accounts Bot. The first thing we're going to do is define the entities. So Dialogflow out of the box understands basic communication, but it's not going to know, infrastructure, G Suite, data management. So that's why we define those entities I mentioned earlier. So we have account, role, and skill. So let's just go ahead and look at role. So we have a few different types of roles, and I defined them as account manager, engineer, and specialist. We've also given it some synonyms, and we've allowed it to be generous with matching it. I think this is one of the key pieces of how to make a chatbot robust, because I could ask the bot, give me a technical guru, and then it's going to equate it to a specialist, which is one of those columns in the spreadsheet. So we define our entities. And the next part is we need to define the intent. So intent, short for intention, is how we know what the user wants us to do. So out of the box, you always want to have a welcome intent. So when I added the bot to the room, this is when the welcome message gets displayed. So normally it's like, hi, how are you? How can I help you? If you want to have a bot with good UX, you probably want to have some instructions on how to interact with the bot. I have defined this intent lookup Googler, and that's where everything that belongs to this conversation is going to go. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to let it know that it needs all those pieces of information that we defined in our entities. So we actually start here with parameters. All of this gets translated to variables in our code, so I'll show you that in just a second. But the first thing we do is we tell the bot, you need to have a role, a skill, and an account. So those are these variables right here. And for this case, I need them all to be required because we need all three pieces of information. I could have set up this bot differently. Maybe skill isn't required, and if you just give it a role and account, you'll get all the whole cluster. But for this one, we're just going to have them all required. And like you saw in the chat room, if you don't have one of the pieces of information, you can define how you want Dialogflow to prompt you for that. So let's say I don't give it a role. Then I tell Dialogflow to ask, okay, do you want account manager or specialist? So that gives you like a fallback to get all the pieces of information that you need. So now we're going to scroll up to what I think is a fun part. They're the training phrases. So this is where we define what input queries look like for our bot specifically. So there's a pre-trained model, and then you can add these to enhance it. You can see some of these, like, please give me an engineer on Gmail. Dialogflow will automatically detect what it thinks each one of those parts are. So it knows that engineer is the role, and it knows that Gmail is the account. So these don't have responses. This is just the input side breaking it down. So you want to have a lot of these so you can understand kind of the intricacies of the language. In Dialogflow, you can ask it questions in multiple different languages. Just for this, today I have a lot of training phrases to make sure it understands like prepositions like on. And then you actually have this console right here. Dialogflow works on multiple different platforms. So even though I'm doing this in Hangouts chat, I could actually have the same bot work in Google Assistant, Facebook Messenger. All of that is set up over here in the integrations. I really like this panel over to the right. It makes it really easy to debug things. So let me just put in an input query. And you can kind of see what it's doing to break this down. So I think I put, give me the account manager for data management at X Labs. Yeah, here it is right here. This is the response I would get in RNs. And then here you can see in test out, like, did Dialogflow break it down? So account, X Labs, skill, data management, role, account manager. So that was the setup for the input. Now there's some important parts missing. Where do we actually look up the sheet? And then how am I creating those card responses? So this is the setup. And then when you want to glue a backend, this is what we call fulfillment. So this is where the code goes. So Dialogflow has an SDK, so you can actually build any language app, any platform. Today, I'm actually using something called the Fulfillment API specifically for Node. And all of my code, looking up the sheet and then building the Hangouts chat response cards, are actually served by a cloud function, specifically here Firebase function, but they're interchangeable for the system. So I'm not going to go through the whole code. I have it up and I'll give you the link for it in a bit, but just let me pull out some highlights. So here is the entry point. And then if you remember that intent that I defined earlier, we can see it here. So what it does is when an input comes in and it looks like they're trying to find a Googler for this account, it will go to this method that I defined for lookup Googler. And this agent has all those pieces of information that I need. So let me find one more spot where I can show you how we actually get it as a variable. Yeah, so here is the start of the lookup code. Find Googler. It has the Dialogflow agent. And then all of those parameters I needed are stored in that agent. This makes it really easy because as a developer, I don't have to worry about what order the user gave the inputs. Do they give like a good input format? Dialogflow does all that hard work for me. So then all I have to worry about is parsing the sheet and constructing that card that has all those different widgets. And I didn't go through all the code, but I actually put it on GitHub if you want to download it. All that setup I just zipped through. You can actually export it as a zip and then import it into your own project. So I have that here. And all the code that crafts everything is in this repo as well. And I know I went through that really, really quickly. We plugged the 24 hours event next Tuesday. I'll be going through all of this and going through more of the details during the session in the afternoon for me there. Cool. So I'm going to hand it over to AGV.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Sorry. Let's see, we had a few questions come through while you were presenting. That was really interesting in terms of like the possibilities behind building these interactive chatbots. You know, we interact with them when we go to websites and things like that, and a little corner pops up and it's like, hello, do you need help today? And you try to explain to them like, I didn't receive my billing information, blah, blah, blah. But one of the questions that came through on the Q&A, let me pull it up and try to show it to folks. It kind of ties back to some of the things that we talked about at the beginning with Charles regarding this idea of using spreadsheets as databases. And let's see, Niall asks about building databases, and AGV, feel free to take this one as well. They have two questions here, so let me read it to you. Also show it on the live stream. This one, yes. Okay, so Niall asks, will you ever provide a solution for us to build simple databases inside of G Suite without needing to go to GCP? And they say that they understand that spreadsheets as databases is not ideal, but they don't have the skills to use kind of a full-fledged GCP database solution.
Yeah. Well, I don't really enjoy setting up databases myself. So normally in that situation, and some of the demo add-ons we built earlier this year, we actually use Firestore. So the setup was easier, and there is an AppScript Firestore library, which I found easy. That's just
okay. I didn't realize there was a built-in kind of AppScript data like client library for Firestore?
I think it's a third party, but I've used it before and it made it much
How do you
easier.
load libraries into AppScript? Is there like a way to just like, or do you have to copy paste the code?
There's documentation on that on our website. Yeah, on the AppScript website.
And then the other question, also from Neil McDonald, is when can I use AppSheet to build solutions as part of their G Suite account? And it says no extra cost, etc. I didn't realize the AppSheet was an extra cost type situation.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Christian handle those.
Cool.
Cool. If that's it, I'm gonna dial off. And
yeah, thanks, Anu.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you at the end. Yeah.
But I think Charles, did you want to share? And thank you, Anu. Charles, did you want to share any additional comments?
Uh-oh.
Is Charles? Charles he's not muted, but his sound is not coming through.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted and I didn't unmute.
We can hear you.
But I did want to jump in quickly and answer Neil's questions for him, both questions, just abbreviated. The first one is we absolutely are exploring a database-like solution. It's in kind of early prototype stages. We're playing with it internally. We haven't committed to releasing it, but we're looking at it and evaluating the feedback on it. We hear you loud and clear. I've seen the prototype. It's awesome. But again, no exact promises at this time, but I think it's a great opportunity. Then as far as the AppSheet one, we're absolutely looking at how we actually bring those closer together. As you know, the acquisition just happened at the beginning of the year. So as we bring the team in and bring the stack in and figure out things like licensing and SKUs and all this stuff, we're trying to figure out how we do it. So do stay tuned on that one. It's something that we hope in the near future to have resolution on. In the meanwhile, I encourage you to play with it. It's super neat, it's super easy. And so thanks for your interest around that. So anyway, I'll shut up now and let AGV talk.
No, thank you, Charles.
Great. Yeah, AGV, take it away.
Thank you. I just also want to kind of add on to that. I think that with so much technology, sometimes it does become overwhelming on like where to invest your energy. I will say this as somebody who likes to help people who are more citizen developer folks who don't have a traditional coding background. I will say that BigQuery, it already has integrations with Google Spreadsheets. And there's a beautiful product called Data Studio, which I don't get to cover in this talk, but I usually always bring it up. It's a dashboard that connects with spreadsheets, BigQuery, and a lot of amazing things. And it's a drag and drop interface. So usually I find that like 60 to 80% of your use cases of when you need a database, which is usually when a spreadsheet's like way too big, it starts getting slow. That's when you want to start using a database. And then you just really want to like be able to like centralize data and visualize it. So a good partner would be Data Studio and BigQuery, and also Data Studio and Spreadsheets. So try those out. I really recommend them until all these other beautiful products that Charles mentions come out.
Awesome. Yeah.
If they come out. Yeah. But I'll go ahead and just start my presentation. My name is AGV, and I'm also a G Suite developer advocate. And today I'd like to share a bit more about the wonders of something called AppScript. Charles kind of talked a little bit about it. But as the title of my slide deck indicates, it's a great way to build scripts that can help teams transform the most popular interface, which are spreadsheets, into quick and functional applications. Now, AppScript itself has been around for a while. This year in 2020, it turned 10 years old, also like BigQuery. It's used by many different audiences in an organization, from IT developers to business groups and advanced spreadsheet skills people. It helps users automate tasks across G Suite or Google products like Translate, YouTube, AdWords, and even with non-Google services. I do have a few short demos at the end to show you some good ideas of what's possible, but it basically helps you create from custom formulas that can perform numerous calculations across multiple columns in a sheet, or kick off approval workflows, or send email notifications when certain values change in a sheet. You can automatically generate a form or calendar invites, and even build custom components like a menu or a sidebar in your sheet. And I share these just so that we have the same mental model as to like, what does it mean to automate? Because that could mean a lot of different things for different people. For those with more advanced knowledge in HTML, you can create a complete interface on a sheet using HTML, which are called web apps. And as a quick note on web apps, they basically allow up to 30 visitors simultaneously to use that app. And they really help you build a basic prototype to test out functionality before having to invest in pretty serious infrastructure. So a few specific highlights I think you would find interesting is that AppScript is a serverless resource, which means you don't need to spin up any server infrastructure yourself to use it. Google does that for you automatically and at no cost. The script runs on any browser without needing to download software, which gives you the flexibility to execute it from any device. Two common ways to create an app script is by either recording a user's actions within a Google Sheet via the macro recording button. The second most popular way is to use the app script editor, which you can visit from any Google Sheet or doc, form, etc., by clicking Tools and Script Editor. Now, you write it in JavaScript, and you can leverage the lovely built-in Google libraries and also the auto-completing functionality that makes it easy to pull information from a sheet like .getRange, and or create UI components like .createMenu, which helps team members run a script from a Sheets interface without having to really touch the code. Now, to get started with AppScript, I have a couple of resources I just wanted to recommend that you check out. One is if you would like to up-level your skills and create your own scripts from scratch, we have a wonderful list of code labs at developers.google.com/AppScript. And they really help you from the beginning to end to build a lot of nice functionality. Also, if you prefer to use existing scripts right now in this moment, you can also check out the Sheets to App series on the G Suite YouTube channel, which directly links you. This link here directs you to a bunch of videos that have links to source code and instructions, depending on kind of what it is that you're trying to build or which of the videos you kind of gravitate to. And now I'd like to share the few short demos that I mentioned. And a friendly note on this is that the sample code and instructions for each of these demos are listed on my Medium blog if you wish to make a copy of them, because you'll see me kind of say, copy of the sheet, copy that sheet. They come from that URL there. And go ahead, Yufan, if you don't mind playing my demos. I wanted to make sure to give you guys high quality and as many demos as possible. So I just pre-recorded them yesterday just to make sure that you guys got the best.
All right, let's do it.
You may be exporting data from an accounting tool every month, and then manually searching, cleaning, and replacing values. More specifically, you probably spend a lot of time finding and replacing duplicates, and performing advanced operations such as a VLOOKUP or a query function in order to pull data from other sheets, or digging through records that use unfriendly date timestamps. In this demo, I will walk you through how to automate this monthly task by using a Google macro and a custom menu. First, make a copy of the sheet, and you'll find a custom menu at the top. If you click Find Misspelled States, you'll be able to create a pivot table, but you'll first be asked to authorize the script to run as you. You can now go back to your custom menu and look up office codes by performing a VLOOKUP into another sheet within the spreadsheet. And lastly, there's the query function that allows you to pull in records just for the first month of the year 2019. When working with data from different sources on a routine basis, it's also common for spreadsheets to grow very, very large. Now, when this happens, it starts to make the spreadsheet move pretty slow, and searching is also impacted. It's good to use an official database. And so you can actually use an app script to import multiple sources of data that live in spreadsheets into BigQuery. And BigQuery is a SQL serverless database that it's a very large free monthly tier. So for projects that are less than 10 gigabytes, you can use for free. In this demo, then, you also proceed to make a copy of an existing spreadsheet, or you can copy the code into a spreadsheet. You can create a BigQuery account for free, and you just copy your project ID into your spreadsheet. And you want to create a data set in BigQuery called sheets_upload. This will allow us to be able to upload the spreadsheets into this data set. Now when we're ready, we go to our custom menu called Sheets to BigQuery. We also authorize our sheet. And sometimes you'll get this message that the app isn't verified, and that's okay. You can just click Go To and the name of the sheet and then Allow. After that, you can refresh BigQuery and see your new tables. Now, if you don't see your new tables, you can just click Sheets to BigQuery again and run the script one more time. Now again, refresh BigQuery. We go into our Sheets Upload dataset, and we will see that there are new tables. One is called CA Financial Data and the other Financial Data. CA Financial Data has 12 items, and that's because we uploaded 6 rows, we don't include the header, from one spreadsheet, and we included another 6 rows from another spreadsheet. Again, we also did not include the headers. And if you notice at the end of this spreadsheet, there is a column E, which asks you, do you want to append? If you say false, it will create a new table. And if you say true, it will add those rows to that existing table. In this next demo, I want to show you how you can streamline user onboarding from a spreadsheet and a Google group. You can also make a copy of an existing sheet that has this code, and you will populate the name of the Google group and the Google email that you would like to add them. Note that if users do not have a Google email or a G Suite email, they can always create a free one, and this allows you to be able to lock down the assets. Next, note that in column D, there's a link to a Google Doc, which serves as the email template that gets sent to users that are newly added. If we visit the Google group, we can see that one of these emails is already added and the other one is not. When we go ahead and click on our custom menu, Install Trigger, and we authorize the script, as we have before, we can jump into the code by going to Tools, Script Editor, and verifying that there is no trigger. Now that it's been authorized, when you click that custom menu, it automatically installs a trigger that has logic for when you edit the spreadsheet. Anything that it notices that is a change, it will run the script. And so that's helpful so that when you change things in column C, which is the allowed field, from not yet to yes, the trigger will activate the script to run, and it will begin to check all the members in the Google group because it uses the group admin API. And if that user is not in that Google group, it will add them and send them an email. But if they are already added to the group, just changes column F into a message that shows that the user has already been added. When we jump into the email, we can see that there's some custom information in there, such as the email of the user and the email of the Google group. This is because in the actual Google Doc template, we have used placeholders, which are the same names as the columns in the spreadsheet, so that when the script runs, it will include custom data from the spreadsheet of the columns that were placed in the template. And just to give you an example of what the Google Doc template looks like, we can go ahead and click and see the placeholders there. this last demo, I'd like to show you how to be able to send text messages from a spreadsheet. And this is using an app script that connects to third parties. Now, this example is for those who want to send dinner reservation confirmation, discount codes, status updates via text message. And it becomes very handy to be able to do so from a Google Sheets interface, where you can enter desired phone numbers to text along with a unique message for each, especially if you need to concatenate or produce randomized data using formulas in a sheet as the message. Then you can create a basic interface using a standalone app script based on JavaScript and HTML in order to collect phone numbers on your website, email signature, or wherever you embed a URL of this web app, and have the phone numbers input and delivered into your Google Sheet. And with the custom menu, you can activate SMSs to be sent. For this prototype, you can use Twilio's free trial account. And Twilio is an online communications provider that offers texting, calling, etc. For this example, there are two scripts. One lives in the spreadsheet, and the web app is a standalone app script, which means that it's not tied to a spreadsheet. By visiting script.google.com and clicking New Project, name it Web App, you can create an app script file and an HTML file. In this case, we're going to call the HTML file page and paste some basic HTML there, so in order to be able to collect phone numbers. Then we'll go back into the code file and paste the spreadsheet that connects to Twilio. In order to deploy this web app, we'll also have to authorize as we have the other scripts. And when you deploy it, you can copy the URL, paste it into your browser, and you are now able to submit data, which is connecting to the spreadsheet. Now we can click our custom menu back in our spreadsheet that has the Twilio script called Send SMS, authorize that script, and you will have the status populated. And this concludes the Sheets to Apps demos that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for your time. Back to you, our beloved MC.
Hey everybody, welcome back. And that was an amazing video, as some folks in the live chat pointed out. Some lovely music selection. So always like to see that. And yeah, what did everyone think? That was pretty awesome. Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you. But I definitely don't want to steal some of Steve's time, so I will happily drop off.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Pleasure to be here, and it's a perfect segue talking about app scripts, since I'm going to actually write some app script talking about add-ons. So hopefully everyone can see this screen here. I'm not going to go from scratch because it's a little tedious to do the manifest. But there's two things I want to show you in talking about add-ons. So first, just build a really simple Hello World equivalent of an add-on, just to give people an idea of what that process is like, what the developer experience is like. And then we're going to take a look at another add-on that's a lot more complex, but gives you a little bit of a better sense as to what you can really do and why I think add-ons are valuable. And one we're going to look at is actually an add-on we wrote a while back and recently updated it. But the reason I like it is because I actually use it, and I use it a lot. It really does help me in some day-to-day work. So it just happens to be one that I really enjoy working with. But before we take a look at the other one, let's take a look at how you build an add-on. And Charles, when he talked about it, he mentioned the manifest, right? And the manifest is really your starting point for an add-on because it describes how your add-on interfaces with G Suite. And you can see here, this is the AppScript editor. We can see what the manifest looks like. It's really just a JSON file. And the most important parts that I want to point out here is this section for add-ons. And this is giving us 2 bits of information. So one is just a little bit about our add-on, right? Just what's the name, give us an icon, what are your colors that you like. And this determines how the add-on appears in Gmail and Drive and Calendar and so on. And I picked a squirrel just because squirrels are awesome. They're actually one of my favorite creatures, and we have a ton of them in our backyard. They're really fun to watch. Then the other part here is this homepage trigger. And this is just telling what code are we going to run when the add-on is displayed. So this add-on is really simple. It's not contextual. It's not going to do anything with Gmail messages or files in Drive or calendar events. But I just want to get something to work. And then we also see some things here, Gmail, Drive, Calendar. And this will, even though we don't have anything inside of here, this just enables the add-on in those applications. So the most interesting part beyond the manifest is the actual code itself. So I have this on home page, but there's nothing here. Charles earlier mentioned the card framework. And the card framework is how we express our add-on UIs. If you are not familiar with it, it's just a declarative way of expressing UI, and it has most of the standard widgets you'd expect with building any UI. It is more constrained than building a web app. That's fine. The advantage, though, is we get to present a really consistent user experience to all users. There's a lot of details about building UIs that we handle on behalf of add-on developers in terms of accessibility, the styling, and so on. If you want to do localization, obviously that's things that you'd have to build in yourself. But the upside is really great experience, works on mobile devices, works on the web, and you really don't have to do a lot to get those advantages. So let's actually start building one of these cards. So I'm going to say let card equals card service is our little builder for this. So we can say new card builder. I think I'm getting this right here. And then we want to add a section. This is the point where we're going to have to start formatting in just a sec, but we'll add a widget. So it's just a little hierarchical model. We have a card, cards have sections, and then those sections have widgets. And say card service, let's just do a new paragraph. Let's do hello. And if I got all this right, we can then just do return card. And I should return an array of cards, and I'll let you know in just a few minutes why that's important. But for now, we're just going to return a single card, and we will make this just a little bit prettier. So that looks pretty good, except I probably missed a parentheses here. Again, the downside of live coding is it's very easy to make mistakes. There we go. So wrote some code. This should display a card that just says hello, easy peasy. And now we need to publish this. So I'm not going to go and publish this for everyone. I just want to deploy this for myself. And so I can go here and click install add-on. So in theory, this should work. And I'm just going to reload Gmail, and we should see this nice little squirrel. And then I made a mistake. But the good thing is, this actually tells you what we did wrong. So we get a thing, this is the wrong return type. And I could actually go back and fix this. But not going to bother to do that. I actually want to show you a more interesting add-on. And this is one called Meeting Assistant. This is a sample that we have up on GitHub, and anyone can take a look at it. What it does is it just makes it easy to schedule meetings with people. And this here is really just what it looks like in the homepage. It's not doing anything with Gmail right now just lets me display a couple preferences. How long do I want a meeting to last? What's my time range, and who do I want to meet? But you know what? Typing in a really long list of participants is not that interesting for me. Usually when I use this, it's because I'm engaged in a discussion with people, and there'll be an email thread, and something comes up on the email thread that says, you know what, we really need to have a meeting about this, right? This is just something that we just can't hash out over email. Let's just get together on Hangouts, or Meet, get into a meeting room, just do something to actually talk through the issue. And so you'll notice if I click on a meeting here, what's going to happen is the add-on knows who's involved in the thread. Right? So it knows that this is myself. Actually, these are both myself, just for demo purposes. But it knows that this is the context of the message. The context of the meeting is about this email thread. It knows who is in, and I can go on and maybe there's a couple of people who I don't want to invite. I can deselect them. I can add additional people if there's somebody I want to bring in who wasn't on the thread. And then when I do this, what it's going to do is actually pretty magical for me. Is it will go through and it'll look at everybody's free busy calendars and then find a bunch of times that they have in common. Right now, for these two participants, my calendar is really open, so I could just do 11:30. You can see the subject is actually the email subject in email. So it picked up that context for me. And then I can just say, let's chat about this. Do that. It's just going to go and create a calendar entry for everybody and invite them. And you can just see it's right here. If I had a busier calendar, if I was doing this on my corporate account or whatever, it may have to look really, really far in the future. It might have to go a week or two out, but it will actually do all that for me. And it just saves me a ton of time when trying to schedule meetings. So let's take a look at the code for that and compare it to the Hello World one, because it's a much more complicated add-on. You can see actually there was several pages, and we can go back and let's say I want to schedule a second one. I can do that, or change my durations. Say I need a 4-hour meeting. Those are usually pretty hard to find, a 4-hour block to do stuff. But you can see, how the card framework works, how the stack of cards, and how we can navigate back and forth. So how does that actually work? Again, the same as the Hello World one. We have a manifest. This one is a little bit more complicated, right? Because it's doing a lot more, and so we need to give it more information. Really, the big one is a list of scopes. Because I'm accessing contextual information, I need permission to do that. I need permission to read the Gmail messages and to run contextually in when somebody's viewing those messages. So I have these two Gmail scopes. And the really cool thing is we actually have some really narrow scopes for Gmail. So my add-on actually only gets access to the message that the user is currently viewing as the add-on is open. So if I were to try to use the Gmail API and say read their entire inbox, I wouldn't actually be able to do that because my add-on doesn't have permissions. Likewise for calendar, because I'm creating calendar events and I'm looking at free busy information, I also need those scopes as well. The rest is similar to what we saw before, right? Some cosmetic information about the URL and colors, the triggers, and in this case, we have a couple more triggers beyond the homepage. We have some universal actions. These are things that show in the little hamburger menu in the top of the add-on. I can show you that in just a moment. And this is just for user preferences. What are my working hours? Do I have any email addresses that I just never want to show? Things from automated systems that I just want to add those to a block list and so on. Feedback link to where you can file issues. And then there's a couple other places things where we want to start saying, okay, well, now we want to do contextual triggers. And this one is just, an unconditional trigger on a Gmail message, and it will run this function called handle show scheduler. The majority of the code, so this one has a little bit more of a complicated internal architecture, but we can take a look at that very first page that we see. Let me just switch back here. So this logic of, the contextual, I'm reading a Gmail, I open up the add-on, how do we display this first one is in this function here. So if you go back to here, we're doing a bunch of things. We're not going to dig into all the details because honestly, they're not really that important right now. And this code is on GitHub, so anyone who wants to go see this can go do that. But we're just gathering a bunch of information, right? I talked about settings, my preferences. So we gather all those preferences, gather the message that we're using, which uses the Gmail API. And then we want to pull out some information from that. The reason I'm not showing that code here is, to be honest, it's actually a little bit of work to normalize all the email addresses you get with an email message. Do things like filtering out things that are from automated systems or no reply addresses. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on underneath the covers. But once we have all that information, we have the message, we have the participants, we get the subject, and then just put together a whole bunch of stuff we want to display and build a card. And that search card, this code, if you compare it to the Hello World one, starts to look a lot more complicated, right? Because we're building this with dynamic data. There's conditionals that we have to start thinking about. What information do we show and when? If I were to do localization, that's another layer that I would have to do. But for the most part, you can take a look at the code on GitHub and see how the cards are built, right? So we have a section for preferences. We add a few widgets, another section for the people. You have a little loop to go and just add a checkbox for each person. And then if you want to add additional people, that's just a text input. And then just button set and return the card. So one thing with this add-on is, it's not really that pretty. I mean, it's fine. It's fine UI, but sometimes I'd like to add a little color, add an image just at the top just to make it a little bit more interesting. And so while this was going on, I actually found this picture I thought would make a good banner for my add-on. And so we can actually try this and see if it works. But I want to replace that first header with an image. New card service, new image, the image URL, copy that in. And okay, that should work. And now if I go here, I can refresh. And so that makes my add-on look, has a little bit more pop. I actually like it a little bit better with the image on top. But that was just a quick little hack just to see if I can make this a little bit better. I like that, so I might actually go and put that into GitHub and everything later on today. So that's the basic process. Once you have an add-on built and you've gone through the process, obviously you want to share it with somebody. Maybe not always. You can just build an add-on for yourself. But if you do want to share it with people, you do that via the G Suite Marketplace. Not going to go through the process of doing that, but I will show you the G Suite Marketplace. There's a couple ways you can get to it. You can get to it from just gsuite.google.com/marketplace and see all the applications. But for add-on, there's actually a really easy way to do this right in Gmail, which is where the add-ons show is this little plus button to get an add-on. And now you can see all the add-ons that work in this context. This is anything that works with Gmail. And there's a lot of great applications here from a lot of partners. And that was maybe one of the questions on the chat was, is there a program for partners? And yes, there is. You can just look at the Cloud Partner Program, and there is a track for people who are ISVs or software developers who want to sell their solutions and have their integrations with G Suite. So it's really easy. If I want one of these, Sana is super awesome, really easy to install, and it's just going to ask me for permissions. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but it's a few clicks to authorize it and grant permissions, and then the add-on shows up, and things work really great. But that is how to build an add-on. Definitely encourage people to do it. The one I showed is just one of possible use cases. There are lots of other ones. Charles talked about an issue tracker. We actually have some of those that we've used internally and built. One of the other demos is a GitHub integration. But you can imagine anything that works on, involves people, your CRM, project management are all really great use cases to build add-ons, and being able to access all that contextual information can really help users. Even if that user is just yourself, really encourage you to explore it and build, because they really can be incredible time savers when you build the right experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. That was really cool. And I wanted to throw up a few questions that folks had and talk a little bit about them. Earlier today, there was this question around some sort of kind of partner program. You may have touched on it just now. You were looking at add-ons, and I thought that was what it was, and then I realized that actually wasn't what it was.
Yeah, there is a partner program. I did see that question about developer domains, and there is a partner program. It's if you I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but if you just search for Google Cloud Partner Program, I think it's called Cloud Advantage is the current name, but there is a track. It's called the Build Engagement, and that is a track mostly for ISVs, so people who have their own software that they're building and integrating. But there's also tracks for resellers and other types of service providers and system integrators.
I'll put a link to that in the chat here, so folks can check that out who are interested. So that was an anonymous question. And then there was also a question, it might be relevant here. Tibor, who is a channel regular, he asks about this question. Let me pull up the question here. Yeah, that they really missed this feature to automatically organize emails within Gmail into these logical categories without a need to set up filters, and that it's pretty tedious to do it yourself. And so it occurred to me that perhaps there are some add-ons that might be able to help us out in this domain, potentially.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know. I do know people who have written add-ons and AppScript to do a lot of kind of more heavy lifting of organizing your email than what you could do with just normal filters, or even just to manage their filters, right? I mean, I've seen people do keep their filters defined in a spreadsheet, and then
power users,
and then just use a script to synchronize them. So yeah, you can just kind of dynamically create filters just by adding a row and a sheet. So there's some really cool stuff you can do. But yeah, in terms of that type of changing the UI is not really possible with add-ons. We are definitely looking at ways.
Yeah, just like completely manipulating the Gmail interface. Right.
Yeah, we're not getting people that much control. There are other ways people extend Gmail. There's a lot of people use Chrome extensions, and that you can do a little bit more invasive stuff. There's actually a really good framework that I think it was, I forgot who actually originally developed it. I think it was, I can't remember the company name.
Are you thinking of like Boomerang?
But it's, it's called Inbox SDK.
Fancy.
And it's a really cool JavaScript library, and a lot of the Chrome extensions that modify the Gmail UI use it, and it just gives you a layer of abstraction. So you can kind of work with the UI and different actions in Gmail in, just a cleaner way than, actually trying to get down into the DOM and, manipulate things at a low level. So they kind of do the work of, figuring out how to do that for you. Obviously, if you're doing Chrome extensions and modifying the UI, it's a whole different class of development and complexity. But you can do some really cool things with that. And I've seen some really amazing things that people have come up with.
So Steve, turning to the angle of kind of the user's perspective, Tibor asks, how can they verify the security of a third-party add-on as a user in G Suite, when they're kind of authenticating something?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to be honest, as a user, there's not a lot that you can do, right? I mean, this is what code does. If you go to a website, right, you can look at some of the code that a website runs. You can see anything client side, but whatever's on their back end, you don't really have a lot of visibility into. So what we lean on in those cases is we do have a few layers of protection for users. So all add-ons that are in the marketplace do go through a review process. And there's 2 review processes that come in. So one is really just the add-on itself, the marketplace listing. And that just checks, is the application doing what it describes? Is the listing accurate? Is there anything, abusive or, inappropriate that we don't want to show in the marketplace? Things like that. And, that just gives you a look, just surface level check. If the add-on uses what we consider sensitive or dangerous scopes, those are things that give the add-on broad access to your data. So all your files in Drive or all your email messages. Those are things that we consider to be very risky. And when we do that, depending on the level of risk, we will do additional security reviews for those applications. So if it's a low-risk application, in this case, mine was only reading a single message at a time, right? So it's a fairly low risk. That's okay. If I was reading everything, then as a developer, I would have to go through a security audit. And knowing that process is there as a user, that's what I would look at is, how much data are they accessing? Have they been verified? Have they gone through this audit process? And of course, a lot of companies will do additional certifications. There's tons of certifications that enterprise customers care about, and we encourage developers to actually make sure their apps are secure and do all that.
And then there's one final question, kind of turning on a different angle, whether there's a recommended approach for building add-on UIs in multiple languages. I'm not sure how many multiple languages we really even support.
Right now it is AppScript only. It is feedback that we have gotten, that there's, developers who, if you develop in Python or Java or Node.js, whatever language you choose, right, that, people have expressed that, I would prefer to use the tools I know. I want to use my processes. I want to keep my code in applications and deploy where I deploy the rest of my code, because there's a lot of operational complexity that comes in with deploying services. So we've been listening to that feedback. I don't have anything, I don't have an update on, what that's going to look like, but it is definitely something we are very interested in opening up to see, how can you build add-ons and extend the UI in ways other than AppScript.
Well, I see Christian has joined us. Hey.
All right. Hi, Chris. I will drop off. Thanks for listening.
Before you drop off, Steve, it's one potential, Amit, it clarifies on the question. He's not talking about programming languages, but spoken languages. Yeah.
Oh, spoken language.
Totally misunderstood that too.
You mean if you want for non-English, basically, you can do that. There's the CART framework will allow you to, the labels that you show, the data that you show can be in any language. It is already localizable. The the old version of AppScript was actually very difficult to do, but now that we are on V8, so the same JavaScript runtime that's in Chrome, that's in Node.js, that actually does support the newer internationalization APIs that are in browsers and in Node and so on. So you have access to pluralization rules and collators and all the APIs that you need to build a localized UI. And then you just have to do the translations and manage those resources yourself. But all the pieces are there. Unfortunately, we don't have a really good demo of a localized add-on, but that's something I think we can take a look at doing at some point.
Oh, that's great to hear, and that Amit will be able to build a localized add-on that can support a diverse set of users.
Yeah, definitely, and certainly encourage people to try it out. And if people get to it before us, awesome. And I would love to take a look and see what people are doing.
G Suite Solution Showcase, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, with that, let's pass it off to Chris and say bye to. Yep, there he goes. How you doing, Chris?
Cool.
Saving the best for last
Oh,
here?
I'm very good. Oh, yeah, of course. So let me go ahead and present my screen. And we'll be up and running in just a second.
Wonderful.
All righty.
All right. It's all you. Take it away.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to be talking about how to integrate some really cool, powerful technology into your G Suite applications. And so in this sense, I have a working demo that I'll actually create on the fly for you today. Basically, I'm going to be using the Vision API. And so Vision API is incredibly powerful. It uses the overall cloud platform's ML AI set of technologies. And in this case, I'm using just a simple API where I'm sending it an actual image, and I'm having it to do a document text conversion. So we'll actually parse through the image and pull back actual text. And so this is the actual app I'm going to run through really quickly here. It's going to basically take 3 steps. So and I'll walk through this, in the demo. But basically, the first step is to configure a GCP project such that it will be able to talk to the Vision API directly, or I'll actually turn on the project so it'll serve as my server portion of my application. Next, I will go ahead and create an AppScript web app. And so essentially, it's just an AppScript project that I deploy as a web app. And then the third step is to update that AppScript code, both with the front-end UI as well as some server-side AppScript in the back to actually make the REST calls to the Vision API. And then once the response comes back, it'll process the results. So here's the essential architecture of the demo that I'm going to walk through. As you can see on the left side, we have a UI. That's just plain old HTML, and I named it like main.html. Two main components in there is just like a input field where I'm going to be providing a URL of an image. So this could be an image that's live on the internet anywhere, and I'll just put it into that UI, click on the button, and then that would take that URL, construct a request along with an API key that I created in the first step, send that in a JSON package via an HTTP post to the Vision API, the URL or the API endpoint. And then once the Vision API gets that request and grabs the image URL that I sent, it will run a text detection conversion, and then it will generate the text and send it back to my app in JSON. And then once I receive the response, the JSON will then be parsed, and I will grab the specific portion of that response, which contains the text. And then I just take that and send it back over to my front-end UI, which is essentially just HTML and JavaScript. And that's where I take that text, present it on the screen. I'll even show the image right there in the UI. All right, so pretty straightforward stuff. A little bit more detail on the steps, and I'm going to walk through this shortly, but yeah, basically enable the Vision API, create an API key. I'm not doing more advanced like OAuth stuff for this demo. I just have a straightforward API key, and then I integrate that into the application itself. And that's the application that I'm going to be creating. All right, that's the UI that I'll create. And again, that's the final results. All right, so let me switch over to the demo. So what you're looking at, if you don't know what this is essentially the screen here for the project that I've created beforehand. And since I need to go ahead and enable APIs and such, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Enable APIs, and I'm going to turn on the Vision API. So I just do a quick search for Vision, and as I'm searching this, it comes up with the API itself. And I happen to have this API already enabled, so I click Manage. So now I'm looking at the actual screen for the API, and then I can go through and say, okay, well, if there's anything I need to observe as the API is running, but typically the first step to actually make it usable in an application is to create some credentials. Now, because I'm not going to be using OAuth or service accounts, I'm going to be just using a straight kind of old-fashioned API key. I'm going to go ahead and click on this Create Other Credentials in the main API's services page at the cloud platform. And then I click over here where it says Create Credentials, and I can create an API key. Now, in this case, I happen to have one already created, so I'm going to use that as we get started here. All right. So as I continue on, I'm going to now switch over to AppScript. So in this case, I'm going to click on the new project, or actually I could create a new project, but I just happen to have an empty project ready to go. So at this point, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I have some code lying over here in a doc, and I'm going to place some of this code right into my, there we go, straight copy and paste into my AppScript app. And I'll click save. And you'll notice here that I have this, that I need to replace it with that key. I'll do that later, but also as I get into the code, you'll see that it's referring to this particular file called main. It's actually an HTML file that I'm going to add, and that's going to serve as my front end to the application. All right, so I'll do file new, and then HTML file, and I'll just give it a name. All right, so that's just my starter code there, and I'll refer back to my cheat sheet. And here we go. And I'll go through this code a little bit more in detail. Whoops. That's the only tricky part, is copy and pasting from a text file. All right, now I'll place that directly. Let's do a visual inspection, make sure I didn't rearrange anything by accident, but it looks okay. So this is essentially the UI part of my application that I'm building. As you'll recognize here in straight plain old HTML, I have like an input field, I have a button, and I'm actually sending it the URL of my image, right? And then also I have the code part here. So this is my AppScript code part, which will essentially grab the get, essentially respond to the HTTP get from the web page. It will serve up this page. The page will then render, and then it's going to, when this button is called, it's going to call this Vision API function. So that's this bit of code right up here. And as it's processing that, it's going to take the image URL, and then it's going to use this google.script.run bit of code, and then it's going to call this server-side make request function. So let me jump over to that. So there's my make request, and the purpose of this make request function is essentially to package together my JSON set of arguments, which then I can then use a call called URL fetch, and then send it the properly formatted JSON argument there. And that, as you can see here, I'm requesting that I want to use the document text detection for this application. Now, before I run it, I actually need to replace this part here with the actual API key. So to do that, I can go back here and just copy that into the clipboard. And I can just do a quick paste. And I'll hit save. And that should all work there. Now I'm going to publish it as a web app. And for me, I'm just going to deploy it to be executing only as me and only in my own environment. So only I have access, and I want it to execute as me. Now, also just an important note: the first time you do this, you'll see a screen that says, review your permissions. And sometimes, depending if you're using the free version, like if you're just using your Gmail account, you'll see like an unsafe little warning. I think it popped up when AGV or Alexandrina was showing her demo. Anyway, no worries. You can click through that and continue on. So in this case, I can just click on this latest code link and pop open a window here. So now I can see my UI, so very basic HTML stuff there. And all I have to do here is enter a URL of an image that is live on the internet. That way the Vision API can access it. Now, to make things easy on myself, what I did was I actually printed out the Gettysburg address on a piece of paper, literally. And I took that image and I placed it in Google Storage. And I created a special bucket in Google Storage, which is public. And then I now have that link right here. So as you can see, there's my image. That's the one I'm going to do. Now to do that, just a little side note here, I actually have to take that and paste it into a browser to get the expanded form. So this is the actual image that I want to provide to the working application, right? So that's the one I'm going to place into this input field here. And I'm going to click Call Vision API. It'll do the conversion. And let me just pull back a little bit so you can see. So now we have our converted text all down here. So problem solved. I got everything working just as expected. So that pretty much wraps up this particular application. The code is pretty straightforward. As I walk through it, it was basically just those two files. And I have kind of like this dual front end code here in the HTML page that then sets up a call to go back to the server-side portion. And then, of course, the magic happens here under the URL fetch app, which then sends the request to the API, right? And also, stay tuned. I actually have a cloud blog that went out this morning where I actually go through a lot more detail, and I essentially wrote up this whole demo in the cloud blog. So anyway, thanks. Hope you found this enjoyable, and then we'll put out more fun stuff in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Christian. That was really interesting. And I'm going to take a peek over at our slides Q&A and our live stream. Here we have a question around the V8 runtime. Let me pull that up for our viewers here and get us into a good view. All right. So this question comes again from Niall, who asks, when will the V8 runtime support modules and async, some modern JavaScript features? It would allow developers to drop in official client libraries from places like Slack and Airtable and things like that.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that one. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact timing on that, so I probably have to say, definitely keep checking on the current product page. But yeah, I probably wouldn't necessarily venture to put out any information that's not quite accurate on that.
That's good to know, and excited that hopefully someday that will come to fruition. Yeah. With that, let's see if everybody wants to come back. But yeah, looks like they're already Charles, and yeah, I just wanted to thank our speakers. Charles.
Make sure you turn down.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to thank our speakers. Great to have you all on. It's really fun to be able to see everybody and hear from all these these interesting kind of products, right? It's not every day that we can have such a esteemed panel of experts in G Suite developer platform technologies. So Anid is under. I'm just checking the live chat here. Folks talking about some of these apps, and thanks AGV for piping in around V8. But yeah, with that, any closing thoughts from anyone? Anyone wanted to add some final notes?
Kudos to you, Yufeng. I just wanted to say that. Sorry for interrupting, Charles.
No worries. I was just going to say, I was super impressed by the demos that kind of backed up what I said in the end. It really shows that a lot of different angles that you can build solutions from this, a lot of different problems, and they all come from different places and take you different places. So I think it kind of shows the volume of the platform. And so, kudos to the folks that presented it. And again, thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's so great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess, with that, we'll wrap it up from here. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and a reminder that next Tuesday, June 23rd, we'll be hosting that 24-hour event featuring many talks across all around the world. Anu and I will actually be hosting the East Coast one, so we'll be split up into 3 8-hour blocks kind of circling the globe, and so we'll be doing the final shift, the final session. And
so you get 8 hours of our beautiful
right?
faces.
Well, hopefully we won't be on screen for 8 hours. Oh my goodness. And yeah, that starts at 10 a.m. in Australia. If you're out in Sydney, hopefully you're asleep right now, but if you're catching this later. And then all the way till 5 p.m. Pacific out in California and Washington and those of folks who are in that time zone. So it'll be a long day, I guess, especially for the team who's mixing all the content together all around the world. So they'll have shifts as well, I hope. And yeah, in general, for more technical content around adventures in the cloud, subscribe to the channel and to catch all our future videos. And with that, we'll wrap it up here. And until next time, see you, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.